The sharp, metallic clack of the red stamp hitting the paper echoed through the marble lobby like a gunshot. Sarah Miller froze. The blood drained from her face as she stared at the bright red ink sinking into her $500,000 certified check. Bold, ugly letters read, void/fraud. Across the glass counter, Victoria Foster leaned in, her eyes cold, her voice echoing off the high ceilings for every customer to hear. "Call the police," Victoria commanded the security guard. "We have a fraudster trying to cash a fake check." Beside Sarah, 7-year-old Lily squeezed her mother's hand so hard her knuckles turned white. Tears welled in the child's eyes as she looked up at the towering guard stepping toward them. The air in the lobby turned ice cold. People pulled out their phones, screens flashing as they recorded the scene. Sarah felt the world shrink down to the heavy beat of her own heart. How had a quiet Friday afternoon turned into a nightmare? To understand how Sarah stood in this polished bank being treated like a criminal, you have to look back at the quiet, invisible life she had been living just hours before the storm broke. The morning had started like any other in the small, 2-story house on the edge of Oak Ridge, Pennsylvania. The kitchen smelled of burnt toast, stale coffee, and the damp chill of a November rain tapping against the window pane. Sarah stood by the stove in a faded gray cardigan. The wool was worn thin at the elbows, soft from years of washing. Her fingers, light and fast, typed financial data into her old laptop on the kitchen counter, while her other hand flipped a pancake in the skillet. She was 32, but the faint lines around her eyes made her look older. For 6 years, Sarah had lived as a freelance bookkeeper, taking on small jobs for local bakeries and dry cleaners. She calculated every penny for the household, saved every coupon, and kept the family's life running smoothly behind the scenes. Heavy footsteps echoed on the wooden stairs. David walked into the kitchen. He was 35, dressed in a sharp, navy blue suit that Sarah had ironed the night before. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. His eyes stayed glued to his phone screen as he walked past her. He didn't look at her face. He didn't say good morning. He simply reached out and took the cup of coffee Sarah had poured for him. David took a sip and grimaced. He set the ceramic mug down on the counter with a loud, sharp snap. "Cold," he said, his voice flat and dry, "just like everything else in this house." Sarah stopped typing. She looked at him quietly. "I brewed it 5 minutes ago, David. The rain is making the house chilly." David scoffed, buttoning his suit jacket. He looked around the kitchen, his eyes landing on Sarah's faded cardigan, then out the window at the driveway where their 10-year-old Honda Civic sat under the dripping trees. Paint was peeling off the front bumper. "Look at this place, Sarah," David said, his tone dripping with quiet disdain. "Look at you. You look like a ghost wandering around this kitchen. I am a senior sales manager at the top real estate firm in the county. My colleagues drive audis. They go to steakhouses on weekends. And I have to park that embarrassing piece of junk around the corner so my clients don't see it." Sarah felt a dull ache in her chest, a familiar weight she had carried for years. "That car is paid off, David. It gets us where we need to go. I use it to take Lily to school and buy our groceries." "And that's all you do, isn't it?" David stepped closer, leaning over the counter. His breath smelled of mint, toothpaste, and bitter coffee. "You sit here making a few $100s a month doing bookkeeping for local shops. You have no ambition, no drive. You've become completely invisible, Sarah. You're just a roommate who cooks and cleans." He didn't wait for an answer. He grabbed his leather briefcase, turned on his heel, and walked out the door. The heavy front door slammed shut, shaking the small glass panes. The engine of his company car roared to life outside, spraying gravel as he sped away into the rain. Sarah stood frozen by the stove. The smell of burning butter filled the air. She closed her eyes and took a slow, deep breath, holding back the burning sting behind her eyelids. A soft touch on her waist broke the silence. Lily stood beside her, wearing her yellow raincoat and holding her backpack. The little girl looked up at Sarah with large, brown eyes that held too much understanding for a 7-year-old. "Meme," Lily whispered softly, using her childhood nickname for Sarah. "I like your sweater. It smells like vanilla and warm hugs. Daddy is just grumpy." Sarah dropped to her knees. She wrapped her arms around her daughter, pressing her face into Lily's hair, which smelled of strawberry shampoo. "Thank you, sweetie," Sarah murmured, her voice steadying. "Your breakfast is on the table. Eat up so we aren't late for school." Once Lily sat down at the table, Sarah closed the lid of her laptop. She took a deep breath and opened a hidden folder on her phone. David saw a quiet housewife who managed pennies. He did not know the truth. Before Lily was born, Sarah had been a rising star as a forensic financial auditor at a major firm in Philadelphia. When she stepped back to care for her family, she never truly stopped working. Late at night, while David slept, Sarah built her own independent consulting firm from her kitchen table. She audited complex financial structures and built risk prediction algorithms for large institutional clients. That morning, an official notification flashed on her phone screen. A major investment fund had finalized the purchase of her financial risk algorithm. The payment was ready, a certified check for $500,000. Sarah looked at the number on the screen. Half of this money would go into an untouchable trust fund for Lily's future. The other half would seed a new fund she was building to help women escaping toxic marriages gain financial independence. She walked to her bedroom closet, pulled out a clean envelope, and placed the document inside. She picked up her keys from the counter. Sarah looked at her reflection in the hallway mirror. She was still wearing the gray cardigan. But as she took her daughter's hand and walked out toward the old Honda Civic, her posture was straight, and her eyes held a quiet, unshakable resolve. She drove Lily to school, kissed her forehead, and turned the car toward the Ellsworth branch of First Horizon Bank. The heavy glass door of First Horizon Bank hissed shut, sealing out the damp November rain. Inside, the lobby smelled of polished marble, expensive leather, and cold air conditioning. Light bounced off bright white tile floors. Sarah held 7-year-old Lily's hand tightly as they stepped into line. Lily's yellow raincoat made a soft rustling sound with every small step. Sarah adjusted her worn gray cardigan over her shoulders and pulled the crisp white envelope from her purse. Men in tailored suits and women in sharp pencil skirts walked past them. Tellers greeted those polished customers with warm, eager smiles. But when Sarah and Lily stepped up, 3 tellers looked up, scanned Sarah's faded sweater, her scuffed shoes, and the old Honda Civic through the glass doors. Their eyes turned cold. They looked away, suddenly busy with paperwork. 10 minutes passed. Lily tugged gently at Sarah's sleeve. Her small shoes clicked on the hard tile floor. "Meme," Lily whispered, her voice timid in the quiet hall. "Why are those people going ahead of us? We were here first." Sarah squeezed Lily's fingers softly. "Patience, sweetie. It never pays to assume the worst about people before they've earned it." Finally, a counter opened. Sarah walked up, placing her driver's license, her bank card, and the $500,000 certified check onto the polished surface. "Good afternoon," Sarah said calmly. "I would like to deposit this into my account, please." The young teller looked at the check. Her eyes widened at the number. Before she could type a single character, high-heeled shoes clicked loudly across the marble floor. Victoria Foster stepped behind the counter. Victoria was 34, wearing a sharp black designer blazer, gold earrings, and a heavy trail of sweet, suffocating lavender perfume. She was the new branch manager. And David's secret lover, though Sarah was not supposed to know that yet. Victoria looked at the check, then scanned Sarah's faded cardigan, and out the window at the rusting Honda Civic. A cruel, condescending smile spread across Victoria's red lips. A deposit. Victoria's voice boomed across the quiet lobby, sharp and loud, drawing every eye in the room. Mrs. Miller, isn't it? A stay-at-home mother driving a rust bucket wants to deposit a $500,000 check. Sarah kept her spine straight, her hands steady on the counter edge. Yes, Miss Foster. It is a certified check from the sale of my financial algorithm. You can verify it in 2 minutes by calling the issuing bank. A young teller named Rachel offered softly. I can make the verification call right now. Ms. Foster. Back to your station, Rachel. Victoria snapped, cutting her off instantly in a tone like a razor. I know how to run my branch. Victoria turned back to Sarah. The smell of her heavy perfume washed over Sarah, thick and nauseating. Let's be honest, Sarah. Victoria sneered, her tone dripping with venom. Women like you don't walk into my bank with this kind of money. You don't have a real job. You leech off your husband's hard work. And now you bring your daughter in here as a prop to pull off a cheap financial scam. Tension snapped across the lobby. Conversations stopped. Several customers pulled out their smartphones, raising the black glass lenses toward Sarah and her daughter. Screens flickered as video recordings started. Look at her, a man in a suit muttered loud enough for Lily to hear. Using a kid to make a fraud look real. Disgusting. Lily's small hand trembled in Sarah's grip. The little girl's face went pale under the cold stares of strangers. Sarah felt a dark anger bloom in her chest, but she did not raise her voice. She looked Victoria straight in the eyes. Miss Foster, I am giving you a fair warning, Sarah said, her voice dropping to a low, icy frequency that vibrated with absolute authority. You are handling a customer's legitimate, legal property. Think very carefully about what you do next. Victoria's eyes flared with rage. She took Sarah's calm warning as an insult to her authority. You don't threaten me in my own building. Victoria yelled. With a swift, aggressive motion, Victoria grabbed a heavy steel stamp from the desk. She slammed it down onto the certified check with a deafening crack. Red ink smeared across the pristine paper. In bold, ugly letters, the stamp read, void/fraud. Victoria tossed the ruined check back across the counter. It slid to a stop right in front of Lily's small hands. Your fake money is destroyed, Victoria declared loudly for the recording phones. And now you are leaving. Victoria grabbed the desk phone and dialed 3 digits. Security, I need an officer in the lobby immediately. We have a fraudster using fake documents, threatening staff, and refusing to leave. Tears finally spilled over Lily's cheeks, hot and fast. She looked at the ruined red letters on her mother's check. Meme. Lily sobbed, her small voice breaking into pieces. They ruined it. Are they going to take you away? Is it because we're not rich like them? Sarah dropped to one knee on the hard marble floor. She wrapped her arms tightly around Lily, blocking her view of the raised phone cameras and Victoria's triumphant smile. Sarah placed her hands on Lily's wet cheeks, forcing her daughter to look directly into her calm, steady eyes. Lily, listen to my voice, Sarah whispered softly, her words steady and rock-solid despite the storm around them. Look at me. We did nothing wrong. The truth doesn't change just because someone screams loudly or prints red ink on paper. Today, I am going to teach you how truth wins. Outside the glass doors, the blue flashing lights of a police cruiser cut through the rain, painting the white marble lobby in pulsing rhythm. The heavy glass doors swung open with a rush of wet November wind. 2 police officers stepped into the lobby, their dark blue raincoats dripping onto the gleaming tile floor. Leather utility belts clanked. Radios crackled with static. Officer Bradley led the way, his boots clicking heavily against the marble. Victoria Foster immediately stepped around the counter, her high heels clicking like sharp gunfire. Her face wore a triumphant smile. Her heavy lavender perfume filled the air as she gestured wildly toward Sarah. "Officer, thank goodness you are here," Victoria announced, her loud voice echoing off the high ceiling for every smartphone camera to catch. This woman attempted to deposit a fraudulent $500,000 check. When I caught her, she refused to leave, made verbal threats against my staff, and created a public disturbance. Arrest her. Sarah did not flinch. She stood up smoothly from her knee, keeping her body between the officers and Lily. Her spine was straight. Her hands were visible at her sides, calm and steady. Officer Bradley looked at Victoria, then down at Sarah's faded gray cardigan, and finally at 7-year-old Lily, whose small hands gripped Sarah's skirt. The girl's eyes were wide, wet with tears, but her mother's hand held her firm. "Ma'am," Officer Bradley said, his voice level and professional as he turned to Sarah, "I need you to step away from the counter and show me your identification." "Of course, officer," Sarah replied. Her voice was remarkably low, smooth, and steady. It carried no anger, no panic, only absolute clarity. From her purse, Sarah pulled out her state driver's license, her First Horizon debit card showing a 15-year account history, and her cell phone. She handed the cards to Bradley. "My name is Sarah Miller," she said clearly. "I have held an active account at this bank for 15 years. The document on the counter is a legitimate certified check issued to me for financial software licensing." Before Ms. Foster called 911, she refused to call the issuing bank to verify the funds. Instead, she publicly accused me of fraud, insulted my child, and illegally destroyed my legal property. Sarah tapped the screen of her phone. Clear, crisp audio filled the quiet lobby. It was Victoria's voice, sharp and sneering, played at full volume. "Women like you don't walk into my bank with this kind of money. You don't have a real job. You leech off your husband's hard work. You bring your daughter in here as a prop." Then came the deafening crack of the steel stamp, followed by Victoria yelling, "Your fake money is destroyed." The lobby fell dead silent. The customers holding up smartphones stopped recording. Several people lowered their phones, exchanging uneasy glances. The young teller, Rachel, stepped forward, her hands trembling. "Officer," Rachel said loudly, her voice trembling but clear. "That recording is exact. Ms. Miller offered to let us call the issuing bank. Ms. Foster refused, threatened to fire me if I made the call, and stamped the check without checking our system." Officer Bradley's jaw tightened. He turned his gaze back to Victoria. "Ms. Foster, did you verify this instrument before stamping it?" Victoria's face flushed a deep, ugly red. I used managerial discretion based on red flags. She drives a junk car, wears rags, and has no recorded income. It is standard security protocol. There is no protocol in federal banking regulations that allows a branch manager to destroy a customer's certified check without verification, Sarah said evenly, looking straight at Bradley. That is a direct violation of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, as well as intentional destruction of private property. Victoria opened her mouth to yell, but a sudden noise at the entrance cut her off. The heavy glass doors spun open again. A tall man in a charcoal gray Italian wool suit walked into the lobby. His leather briefcase clicked as he carried it in his left hand. Two executive aides followed closely behind him, holding leather portfolios. It was Marcus Vance, the regional president of retail banking for First Horizon. Marcus had come to the Ellsworth branch for a private, high-stakes 4 o'clock meeting. He was there to finalize a $20 million system security and financial risk audit agreement with an independent expert an expert his board had pursued for 6 months. Marcus took 3 steps inside and froze. He saw the flashing blue police lights outside painting the marble walls. He saw 2 armed officers standing in the center of the lobby. He saw scraps of a stamped check lying on the counter, a crying child, and a crowd of customers filming with their phones. His eyes landed on Sarah Miller. The briefcase slipped from Marcus's hand, hitting the tile with a heavy, hollow thud. His eyes widened in absolute shock. "Miss Miller," Marcus said, his voice carrying across the silent hall with an authority that made every head turn. He pushed past the security guard, striding across the lobby with fast, urgent steps. He stopped directly in front of Sarah and extended his hand, bowing his head in deep respect. "Miss Miller, what on earth is happening here?" Marcus asked, his tone filled with genuine alarm. "We were scheduled to meet in the executive office upstairs at 4 to sign the risk architecture contract. Why are you standing out here with the police?" The silence in the lobby turned suffocating. Victoria felt the floor sway beneath her heels. Her breath caught in her throat. "Mr. Vance, you know this woman?" Marcus turned on Victoria, his eyes cold as ice. "Know her? Ms. Sarah Miller is the founder of Apex Financial Solutions. She is the lead forensic auditor who built the fraud detection architecture our entire regional network is adopting next month. She is the sole authority approving our $20 million security overhaul." Marcus looked down at the counter. He saw the red ink stamped across the check, void/fraud. He saw the total amount, $500,000. His face went pale, then dark with fury. "Victoria, tell me right now that you did not stamp this document." Victoria stammered, her hands shaking violently. "Sir, she came in looking like a vagrant. She drives a 10-year-old Civic. I assumed." "You assumed," Marcus interrupted, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper that echoed everywhere. "You destroyed a legal instrument belonging to our most critical vendor, humiliated her in public, and called the police because of what she was wearing." Marcus turned to Officer Bradley. "Officer, I am Marcus Vance, Regional President of First Horizon. I can confirm on the record that this $500,000 check was issued to Ms. Miller by our primary institutional partner. It is entirely legitimate. Ms. Foster acted without authority, without verification, and in direct violation of bank law." Officer Bradley took out his notepad. "In that case, Mr. Vance, Ms. Foster's call to dispatch constitutes filing a false police report, a Class A misdemeanor." "Proceed accordingly, officer," Marcus said coldly. He looked directly at Victoria. "Victoria Foster, hand over your keys and employee badge immediately. You are terminated on the spot. You will not touch a computer, you will not enter an office, and you will be escorted from this building in handcuffs if you resist." Victoria gasped, clutching her gold necklace. Her knees buckled, but no one reached out to catch her. The tellers looked away. The customers recorded every second of her downfall. Before Officer Bradley could step toward Victoria, the glass doors burst open once more. David Miller rushed into the lobby, his tie loose, his forehead slick with sweat. He had received a frantic text message from Victoria minutes earlier about a disturbance. He scanned the room, saw Victoria standing pale beside the police, and saw Sarah holding Lily's hand. David's face twisted in rage. He marched straight toward Sarah, his shoes squeaking on the wet tile. "Sarah, what the hell are you doing?" David shouted, his voice echoing loudly. "Are you out of your mind? You came to my girlfriend's bank to cause a scene? You're embarrassing me in front of the entire town. Look at you, wearing that pathetic sweater, making a fool of yourself." David grabbed Sarah's shoulder, trying to pull her away. Sarah didn't flinch. She turned her head slowly and looked at David. Her eyes were so sharp, so icy, that David's grip instantly froze. "Take your hand off me, David," Sarah said, her voice quiet, lethal, and absolute. David stepped back, startled. He glanced around and suddenly realized who was standing beside Sarah. Marcus Vance was staring at him with pure disgust. Officer Bradley had his hand resting on his leather holster. "Mr. Vance," David stammered, his face going pale as he recognized the banking titan. I'm sorry, my wife is unstable." "She is not your wife anymore, David," Sarah interrupted smoothly. From her leather purse, Sarah pulled out a thick manila folder. She stepped forward and pressed it firmly against David's chest. "These are unilateral divorce papers," Sarah said, her voice ringing clearly across the lobby, "along with a complete forensic audit report of your personal accounts." David stared at the folder, his hands trembling. What are you talking about?" "For 6 years you thought I was just a clueless housewife cooking your meals and washing your clothes," Sarah said, stepping closer to him, her posture towering despite her faded cardigan. "You forgot that I am a forensic financial auditor. Every dollar you siphoned from our joint savings to buy designer bags and hotel rooms for Victoria Foster is documented in that file." David's mouth opened, but no sound came out. "I submitted those audit reports to the Internal Revenue Service and your firm's compliance board at 8 o'clock this morning," Sarah continued, her tone as precise as a scalpel's cut. "By tomorrow morning, your real estate license will be suspended for wire fraud, and your firm will terminate your employment." David dropped the folder. White papers scattered across the wet marble floor, displaying bank statements, wire transfers, and red audit flags. Victoria slumped against the counter, sobbing hysterically as Officer Bradley placed her hands behind her back, the metallic click of handcuffs snapping shut in the quiet room. David dropped to his knees among the scattered audit papers, staring at Sarah as if seeing a stranger for the first time in his life. Sarah did not look down at him. She did not yell. She felt no anger, no hatred, no urge to gloat. The pain that had weighed on her chest for 6 years simply evaporated into the cold November air. She turned to Marcus Vance, who gave her a deep, respectful nod. "We will reschedule our signing for Monday at your new office, Ms. Miller," Marcus said quietly. "And I promise you, First Horizon will answer for every second of this outrage." "Thank you, Mr. Vance," Sarah replied softly. She turned, took 7-year-old Lily's warm hand in hers, and walked toward the glass doors. Outside, the rain had stopped. A beam of late afternoon sunlight broke through the gray clouds, reflecting off the wet pavement. Sarah pushed open the heavy doors and stepped into the crisp, clean air. She did not look back. 3 weeks passed. The morning air in downtown Philadelphia smelled of fresh rain, roasted coffee beans, and crisp autumn leaves. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling glass windows of a high-rise office building on Chestnut Street. Inside the corner suite on the 16th floor, Sarah Miller stood by her desk. Smooth hardwood floors gleamed under warm brass lamps. The faint hum of city traffic drifted up from the avenue below. On the desk sat a brushed gold nameplate. Sarah Miller, founder and CEO, Apex Financial Solutions. Sarah looked at her reflection in the glass window. The faded gray cardigan was gone. She wore a tailored ivory wool suit, a crisp white silk blouse, and simple pearl earrings. Her dark hair was styled neatly over her shoulders. Her skin looked bright, rested, and alive. She looked at her hands. They were steady. For 6 long years, she had allowed herself to feel small. She had blamed David for her isolation. She had blamed Victoria for her humiliation. But in the quiet mornings following the bank confrontation, a profound shift took root inside her mind. Sarah stopped playing the victim. She realized that her quiet endurance had not been a noble sacrifice. It had been a choice to remain hidden. Staying in a cold, toxic marriage had been a quiet surrender to comfort and fear. The moment she stopped waiting for David to appreciate her, the anger in her heart evaporated. She owed herself no more tears. She owed her daughter a mother who owned her own strength. Her happiness was no longer negotiable, and it belonged entirely to her. Action followed mindset. First, Sarah took complete control of her financial foundation. First Horizon Bank had formally voided the damaged paper and reissued her $500,000 certified check, along with a written letter of apology from the board of directors. Sarah immediately placed $250,000 into an irrevocable educational trust fund for Lily, securing her daughter's future until adulthood. She used the remaining $250,000 as seed capital to establish Apex Financial Solutions. She hired 2 talented junior auditors, women who had been overlooked by traditional firms, and leased a modern office space in the financial district. Second, Sarah invested in her physical health and professional presence. She started waking at 5 every morning to run along the Schuylkill River Trail, feeling the cool wind clear her lungs. She cooked fresh, nourishing meals for herself and Lily. She bought clothes that fit her posture, sharp, elegant suits that reflected her intellect rather than hiding it. The financial industry took notice quickly. Within a fortnight, Sarah accepted an invitation to serve as the keynote speaker at the Mid-Atlantic Financial Crimes Summit. Standing before an auditorium filled with 300 corporate executives, her voice echoed through the speakers, sharp, precise, and commanding. Nobody in that room looked at her code or asked about her husband. They listened because her knowledge was undeniable. Third, Sarah used her leverage to create permanent systemic change. When Marcus Vance offered her a private $100,000 financial settlement on behalf of First Horizon Bank to resolve the incident smoothly, Sarah refused the money. "I do not want your cash, Mr. Vance," Sarah told him across the mahogany conference table. "I want institutional accountability." Instead of a payout, Sarah required First Horizon Bank to sign a legally binding charter creating the New Journey Fund. The bank provided $2 million in initial endowment money. The fund was designed to offer emergency grants, free legal representation, and financial literacy training to women and single parents escaping abusive or toxic home environments. Furthermore, Sarah mandated new internal bank policies across all regional branches. No manager could freeze or flag an account without a second manager's written verification, and every employee received mandatory anti-bias training led by outside auditors. The door to her office clicked open softly. Lily walked in, wearing a navy blue coat and polished red rain boots. She carried a small drawing in her hand. Behind her, Rachel, the former teller from First Horizon, whom Sarah had hired as her executive assistant, offered a warm smile before closing the door. "Look, Meme," Lily said, placing the drawing on the mahogany desk. It was a picture of 2 figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun, labeled Meme and Me. Sarah smiled, pulling Lily onto her lap. The faint scent of strawberry shampoo filled the air, mingling with the smell of fresh paper and fresh flowers on her desk. "It's beautiful, sweetie," Sarah whispered, kissing her daughter's cheek. Rachel knocked gently and set a leather folder on the desk. "Ms. Miller, the first application for the New Journey Fund just came through from the regional committee. It's a mother of 2 in Scranton who left an abusive home last night. She needs immediate housing assistance and legal representation." Sarah opened the folder. She picked up a heavy black fountain pen. She felt no lingering bitterness toward David or Victoria. Their names belonged to a distant closed chapter. Her chest felt light, expansive, and completely healed. Standing up from her past had not required revenge. It had required taking responsibility for her own life. Sarah pressed the pen to the paper. Her signature flowed smoothly across the bottom of the document, approving a $5,000 emergency grant that would give another woman her first taste of safety. She capped the pen, closed the file, and held Lily's hand tightly as they looked out over the sunlit skyline of Philadelphia. 3 months later, it was late October, during the golden hour of a Saturday afternoon. Warm, honey-colored sunlight washed over Fairmount Park in Philadelphia. The air smelled of crisp autumn leaves, damp earth, and roasted chestnuts from a nearby street cart. Maple trees stretched across the hills, their leaves glowing in rich shades of crimson, orange, and amber. A soft breeze rustled through the branches, sending dry leaves dancing across the green grass. Sarah Miller stood near the edge of the stone bridge, overlooking the Schuylkill River. She wore a tailored beige trench coat over a dark navy sweater and simple leather boots. Her hair was down, catching the warm golden light. Her face was serene, completely free of the quiet tension that had defined her 6 years in Oak Ridge. Her posture was relaxed, her chest rising and falling with slow, peaceful breaths. Beside her, 8-year-old Lily laughed as she ran through a pile of dry leaves, her bright red jacket standing out against the golden grass. A small golden retriever puppy trotted happily behind her, barking at falling leaves. "Meme, look," Lily called out, her voice bright and ringing like a silver bell. The leaves looked like gold coins floating in the wind. Sarah smiled softly, her eyes following her daughter. "They do, sweetie. Catch one before it hits the ground." As Lily scampered across the lawn, a crunching sound of footsteps on dry gravel broke the quiet rhythm of the afternoon. Sarah turned her head slowly. David Miller stood 20 feet away on the gravel path. His appearance was unrecognizable. The sharp navy suit was gone, replaced by a faded jacket and worn jeans. His hair was unkempt, streaked with gray at the temples. His eyes were bloodshot, surrounded by dark circles of exhaustion. His shoulders slumped forward as if carrying an unbearable weight. Following his wire fraud investigation and termination, David had lost his real estate license. His assets were frozen by tax auditors, and he had been forced to move into a tiny studio apartment outside the city. Victoria Foster was currently awaiting trial on misdemeanor charges of filing a false police report, her banking career permanently over. David stopped walking. He looked at Sarah. His eyes moved over her elegant coat, her glowing skin, and the quiet authority that radiated from her posture. She looked radiant, powerful, and completely beyond his reach. He took a slow, hesitant step forward, his voice hoarse and trembling. "Sarah," David stammered, clutching a paper coffee cup in his shaking hands. I saw you from the street. I almost didn't recognize you." Sarah did not step back. She did not raise her guard. She looked at him straight in the eyes, her expression as calm and still as a mountain lake. David swallowed hard, looking down at his worn shoes. I wanted to say I'm sorry, Sarah. I lost everything. My job, my license, my reputation. Victoria is gone. I ruined my life. Every day I sit in that empty room and realize what a fool I was. I threw away my family for nothing. He looked up, his eyes wet with tears. Is there any chance you could ever forgive me? Can we try again?" Sarah listened to every word. 6 months ago, hearing David beg for forgiveness might have brought tears to her eyes. 3 months ago, it might have filled her with bitter satisfaction. Now, she felt nothing. No anger, no hatred, no urge to mock his downfall. The pain he had inflicted had simply burned away, leaving behind pure, unshakable clarity. Sarah took a slow breath of the cool autumn air. She looked at David with genuine compassion, the kind one offers a stranger who has lost his way. "David," Sarah said softly, her voice steady and clear. I do not hate you. I have already forgiven you. David's eyes lit up with a sudden, desperate hope. You have. Yes, Sarah continued smoothly, her words carrying the finality of a closed book. I forgave you the moment I stopped waiting for you to see my worth. I forgave you because holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. But forgiveness does not mean returning to the dark. We are done, David. I wish you peace, and I hope you find your own way forward. David stared at her, his mouth opening, then closing. He searched her face for a crack in her resolve, a flicker of emotion he could leverage. He found none. He realized in that quiet moment that he was standing before a woman he no longer knew, a woman who had outgrown the small, dark world he had tried to keep her in. He lowered his head, turned slowly, and walked away down the gravel path, his footsteps fading into the rustling leaves. Sarah turned back toward the river. She did not watch him leave. Lily ran back up the hill, holding a bright red maple leaf in her small hand. Meme, I caught one. Sarah knelt down and wrapped her arms around her daughter, feeling the warm, vibrant life in the child's hug. She kissed Lily's forehead, looking out over the water where the late afternoon sun turned the Schuylkill River into a ribbon of liquid gold. True power had never been about carrying a $500,000 check or getting revenge in a bank lobby. True power was the courage to stand up from the ashes of a broken life, take full responsibility for one's own happiness, and walk into the future with an open heart. Sarah stood tall beside her daughter, her face bathed in the warm golden light of the afternoon sun, free, proud, and completely whole. All shadows must fade before the truth, and every pain is simply the start of a beautiful rebirth. Always remember, the right to write a new chapter of your life is forever in your hands. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe, and leave a comment below so we know we're walking this journey together. Hope to see you on the next page.